everybody. This channel started out as just some YouTube videos to try to help out other teachers with some things, but it's kind of just turning into like programs and applications that I use to stay productive and stuff. And so one of the ones that I use constantly, and I just have to show folks, is AnyDesk, which is a remote desktop program, and there's a ton of use cases for it, which I've got some of them mentioned here, and I'm going to go over some of those, and I'm going to show you how I use it, of course. But first, to get it, which I've already got it downloaded and installed and set up on most all of my machines, but I'll show you where you can get it from at least. So if you just type AnyDesk download into Chrome, and you should all be using Chrome because it's the best, then you can just select your operating system here and do download. Windows, they've got 5.4.2, there might even be a newer version. It's a small download. You see it's only 3 megabytes, and what's nice about this is the server or host software is the same as the client software. So when you download one, you've got it all. But you need to download it on each machine that you want to connect to one another. So the other nice thing is, as you can see here, it's pretty much operating system independent. So I've got it running on Windows, Mac, Android, and Linux. I've never run it on FreeBSD, and I'm curious about how they do it for Chrome OS. I'm not sure if this is a flat pack or what. It's an Android app that they do on Chrome OS. So if your Chromebook supports Android apps, which not all of them do, especially the older ones, don't, I should say. If your Chromebook does support Android apps, though, then you can use it. And I do have an Android device here, so I'll show you that, because that's like one of the best things about it, in my opinion. So yeah, it's operating system independent. Let me show you some of the settings and stuff. So again, I've got it installed here. When you first install it, what you should do is open up your settings, and there's one here, on session close, ask for a comment. I uncheck that. I think that's just like their marketing thing. And then I'll go through these. So some of these are different on the different operating systems. So like, I don't think that the Linux or Mac version has printer, or at least the Linux version doesn't, but I always just change this to dismiss. So if I happen to send a print job to this computer, it just dismisses it. I don't use printers. I use everything in Google Drive and stuff. For recording, normally I'll have this unchecked, so I'm glad I see that. You'll see outgoing and incoming sessions are both usually checked, and that's just going to waste space, in my opinion. If you've got a security issue, if you're concerned about security, or for that matter, if you're using it for some sort of security purpose, sure, check them. But I leave them unchecked. For file transfer, I just leave it alone. For connection, I leave it alone. Now, on some of these, it will mention a VPN. I don't use the VPN that's in here. I'm not sure which versions it'll show it in. Maybe it shows it in the Linux version or something. If you want to use this with a VPN, my recommendation is just use a VPN. If you use TunnelBear or PIA or whatever, just use that software. So connection I leave alone, except when you see the VPN option, then I'll uncheck it. Audio I normally leave alone, but audio doesn't transmit very well generally unless you're on the same network. So you might want to disable it just to save a little bit of bandwidth, but it's probably not gonna hurt much to to have it checked, honestly. Same thing with display. So you can change between best quality, best reaction time, or keep it in the middle. That's what I do. If you have weird issues, you might want to change the hardware acceleration and make sure that it's on Direct 3D. You might try Direct Draw if you have issues. So one of the things that I noticed on certain devices, when I go full screen, if I remember correctly, it loses the full screen toolbar that's up at the top. but if I switch it to Direct 3D, then it works properly. I think some other ones simply won't work in full screen for one reason or another. At any rate, if you have issues, play around with this here. Privacy I leave alone. You can change it if you want to. If you've got a wallpaper that shows your kids or something, and you're sharing this with like a repair person, you might want to deactivate it or do a screenshot or something. Security is where you're going to change some stuff. So by default, interactive access I think is checked to allow only if AnyDesk window is open. So meaning you've got to have one of these windows open on the machine you're trying to connect to in order to connect to it. And I changed this to allow always. That way I can, if I restart a computer when I'm not at home, I can still connect to it. And then you also need to check this enable unattended access and set a password. The password I think needs to have a letter, a number, at least 8 characters, and a special character as well. So it's somewhat secure anyways, but try to use something that's secure. When you check this and type in your password twice, after you do unlock security settings, when you open this back up, it won't show that it's checked, but I do have unattended access open here. So don't let this fool you. Once you set it once, it's usually set, but of course, test it. And then we're back to user interface. So there's other things in here, and for the license key, I just use the free license personally. I think there's a commercial license available as well. I don't know. I use the free license, and that's really all that I know about. So that's basically all that there is for settings. As for limitations, so what I've seen anyways, your internet speed isn't typically the biggest problem. Like I'll use this with my phone internet all the time from the coffee shop. So I'll use the Wi-Fi hotspot on here, and I'm able to connect my tablet to any of my computers at home, and this is fast enough. The bigger problem is with latency. So you're not going to get an incredible reaction time. Like there's a lag normally. All my devices right now are on the same network, but they work exactly the same if they're on a different network. And for that matter, I could even, I could connect one of my devices to my phone from here, and you'd be able to see that, and it works really well. But there's a lag. So you move the mouse or you click, and you'll have to pause for, what seems like kind of an eternity, but it's probably, half a second or something like that. And that's just the way it is. There are other options, and I'll talk about some of those in a couple minutes, but this one just seems to work really well, in my opinion, if you can get over that lag. The other nice thing, one of the nice things about this is you can sort of go a couple different ways with it. As for use cases, I'm going to jump to that. So you can be working from home and connect to a computer at work, or vice versa. And what I would normally do, like I say, I would bring in my phone because the school that I work at simply blocks AnyDesk, and so I use my phone's Wi-Fi hotspot. And then I will connect my tablet here, which I know you can't see it super well, but this is the tablet app for Android at least, and I assume iOS is similar. And I'll connect to one of these desktops or to a virtual machine, and what's nice about that too is then I have direct access to all of the files that are on my local network. So I have a NAS device, a server that I can connect directly to that server, or I can simply connect to one of the Windows machines that's running, or one of the Macs that's running here in my house. And since those devices are on the same network as the server, they have direct access to it as well. And the other nice thing is there is a file sharing function that's in here that I can show you. So what you see here, these are the desktops that I have that I've previously connected to anyways. I do have a couple others, but what's neat, if you click on these, you can do start file transfer. So like this Ubuntu Media Share, that's my server, my NAS box, and I'll connect to it shortly here. It does have a desktop user interface to it, but I can even connect to like one of my Windows machines or a Mac machine and still get to my server, since the Windows and Mac machines are connected to my server. But yeah, so like what's really nice here is I can do start file transfer, and then it gives you this split screen, right? So here's this device, this Windows machine, and then here is the Linux machine, the Ubuntu machine. So like if I go up a bunch and then go into media, vert, so these are just all of my personal files that I keep, that I save. So like if I want to get one of my pictures, for instance, I can come into here and grab a picture and hit download, and it'll download it to, in this case, documents. I can change this, you know, if you're used to these 2-pane file explorers, then you'll get it, but I can change this to, let's say, desktop, and now if I click download, it's just downloaded this to my desktop. So, what's that called? DSCF something? So like if I open up my desktop here, right there. And that was a picture I took when I was in Colorado on a business trip a long while back. So it's nice just that it's got that file sharing feature, because it kind of works like a VPN in that sense, without having to set up a VPN. With AnyDesk, it's simply you share a code and a password. So you don't have to set up a VPN or have a VPN server in your house. And but it works like you're right there, because the computer that you're connecting to at home is right there. Now again, if you're connecting to a computer that's at your work, so for instance, for me as a teacher, we have a bunch of work materials, you know, notebooks and workbooks and just teacher stuff, you know, worksheets and stuff at school on our network storage that's there, but I can't access it from home normally. Now, my school doesn't actually have AnyDesk set up, as I sort of alluded to earlier, but if they did, or if it were a business, I'd be able to access those things, either directly through a desktop or through the file sharing feature. So that's sort of the home to work, work to home thing, and that goes with the VPN type connection. So let me show you a couple of examples here. So firstly, I've got a laptop sitting right next to me. I'm going to connect to it, and that's this Dell Latitude. And I mean, I've got it here. You can't really see it, but I'm now controlling it. I mean, this is that Dell Latitude. I can go full screen with it. Now, what you'll notice is this is full screen, but it doesn't take up the entire screen, because this TV is 1080p. Well, not natively, but it's 1080p. However, my laptop is only 1600 by 900. Now, if I set the resolution on my desktop to say 1360 by 768, then this will fill up the window and it will just sort of shrink. And what's nice about that is I've got a couple of devices that are 1360 by 768 screens. These ones behind me, one is a Casper laptop and one's a Chromebook. But what's cool is I can open up, since they're only, one's a dual core Celeron with 4 gigs of memory and a 32 gig SSD. One is a Atom Z8350 quad core with 4 gigs of memory and 32 gigs SSD. I can connect to like one of these computers here. I can connect to a virtual machine on my server, and now I've got like what I'll normally connect to in my VM is 8 cores with 16 gigs of memory, and you know, a little bit of speed connected to my home network. And I can set the screen to 1080p, which will then fill that 1360 by 768 screen, but also sort of shrink it. And normally what you would get in a situation like that is it would look really distorted and fuzzy. On these two devices, it actually looks awesome to have it shrink and fit down. I'm sure that there's a limit to that, to you know what looks good, but you can basically get a higher resolution screen and then a faster computer than what these are natively by using AnyDesk and connecting. So at any rate, this is my laptop, and basically it's just a regular laptop. Now, I can connect to this from work. I can connect to it from anywhere, basically. Again, I've got my server here, which is an Ubuntu server, which I can connect to from anywhere. I can start, if I want to download something from online, I can start a download when I'm, say, at work. By the time I get home, it's done. If it's, an ISO that I want to try out of a Linux distro, or let's say a legally copied video or music or something like that, it is connected to a monitor, but I basically just never turn that monitor on because I use this. I have some other tools too. I use Canonical's Cockpit for administration, and also Webmin. I like Webmin, but Cockpit has a nice terminal app, but it's got a GUI as well, so I can connect to it with AnyDesk. And because sometimes things are just easier when you've got a user interface. And so I've got options. And also, being just a regular NAS server with a 6-core, 12-thread, an older Xeon processor, but and with 24 gigs of memory, it'll run a user interface without a problem. I've got some junk NVIDIA card in there, but so it's not really like a purist sort of thing, but it works well. And AnyDesk allows me to connect to it without ever having to. I actually don't even have to plug it into the monitor, but I have it plugged in sort of like just in case, because I have the extra HDMI port, and because it's close. For the longest time though, I would connect to this with AnyDesk and not have any monitor connected to it at all. And so it was sort of headless. The other thing is, not this one, but the computer that I have running VMs, I have turned off at the moment, but I have an Ubuntu machine. It's actually this one, but on the other boot partition, instead of Windows, I can boot up to Ubuntu, and then I can run Windows, Mac, and any one of a bunch of different Linux versions from there. So what I'll often do is, when I'm at home, boot into Ubuntu, start up a Windows 10 VM, another Ubuntu VM with a larger screen resolution, higher screen resolution, and also a Mac VM. And then when I'm at school, I connect from school to home, and I use those computers, and I use it for my tablet. So I can give you sort of an idea. So I'm not sure how well you can see that, but actually let me get a couple of things out of the way here. So this is the type of thing that I'll do. So that is my Android tablet running Mac OS, running Mac OS 10.12. I've got a Hackintosh here that runs that, and so I'll go to school and run any of those operating systems from my tablet, which is awesome, because now I've got a little Bluetooth mouse and keyboard that I usually bring with me, but I don't even need that. I can connect to any of those and have the availability of full-blown Android running natively on a tablet. It's got a 1920 by 1200 screen, so it looks pretty good too. But then I have Windows, Linux, Mac, all available at my fingertips wherever I go, using my phone's internet, as long as I have power at my house. So anyways, here's my server. I showed you Windows, and then here's that same Mac device, which I can open up on here. So now, I've got Windows running, but since I can connect to my Mac, here I've got Mac as well. And I think I had to use a custom resolution on this to get it to fit the screen I have it connected to properly. But you can see there is some lag. And now, in this case, I'm on the same network, and so that lag is actually minimal right now. But there is a lag there. But you really get used to it. Actually, right now it's not bad. You do see, though, a little bit of blurriness, a little bit of pixelation, and sort of some artifacting here and there. That's just, the constraint of passing all of this video and mouse click and keyboard click data through the network. Yeah, and you can see some more artifacting there. But yeah, so I use this every day. I use this constantly. You can also use it as a simple remote control. So like for instance, if I've got music playing in my living room here, but I'm in the kitchen doing something, cooking or whatever, I can take one of these laptops in there and open it up and open up AnyDesk and have the AnyDesk connected to this one, and I can just, you know, switch my music, or if I'm watching the news, change what's on the news or whatever. So as a remote control, it's pretty nice. Pardon me, I'm a little bit ill right now, so I'll have a cigarette and that'll make me feel better. The other one that's really handy for this, and I think this is really the main reason that Microsoft Remote Desktop came out, but it is software repairs. So I'm here now in Istanbul, Turkey, as an English teacher, but I've connected to my dad's laptop and my grandma's desktop computer, and actually her desktop is like an Athlon X64 or something or other. I think it's like 2 gigahertz with 2 gigs of memory and Windows 7. And just about a week ago, I think it was, I connected to hers to run like CCleaner and some other, you know, ran a disk defrag because it's actually got a hard disk in it. And, you know, I'm able to do that from here, from literally halfway around the world. So, of course, the better internet connection, the better it's gonna be, the better your experience. But latency is really the problem. And once you get used to it, as long as you don't expect to be doing like video gaming or watching movies or anything like that, AnyDesk isn't great for that in my experience. There might be other ones that are better. We'll talk about a couple of those in a second. But for anything productivity wise, so, you know, office software, probably even CAD software, simple photo editing type stuff, not really video editing, I think you'd have troubles with that, but some of those simpler tasks, yeah, you can do it through AnyDesk, and it's awesome. And then, yeah, as like a thin client, I mentioned these here and the Android tablet, where I will connect to a virtual machine or connect to one of my, you know, actual physical machines here at the house. And while I'm at the school working, I don't need to use any of the school's machines. I can use just my tablet, which, you know, I just toss in a bag. So it's really super convenient. There are some other alternatives. So there's Microsoft Remote Desktop, of course. There's TeamViewer. For some server management, you can get by with just SSHing in, but that's really different because there's no user interface. Parsec is one that I've heard of recently. NVIDIA has, I think it's Stadia, or maybe it's Google Stadia, I forget, but there's a couple of gaming-centric ones. And I'm sure that those are fine. They supposedly have better latency. But I like AnyDesk. It's simple setup. You install it, and you need to know this number. And once you've changed those settings, you need to know this number and the password, and that's it. As for the software itself, so I don't know if it has security issues, but I know I've used it for a long time, and I've never noticed any problems. My recommendation is, if you work for the NSA, don't use remote desktop at all. And also, why are you watching my video? This is way below you. Find something better to do, right? You do need to be careful, though. You do need to be concerned. Part of the nice thing with this is, since I've got a webcam on this, for instance, say I'm at work and I need to have someone come here to fix something, right? I can open up this computer at work while the monitor stays off, the TV itself stays off. I can turn on the webcam, the camera just like it is here, and I can see what's going on. So it kind of works for remote surveillance. The problem is, that's also essentially spyware. If someone else were to use my codes and find my password, they could easily do the same to me. They could turn on my camera, and until I figure it out, or until I catch them, or until I see this little blue light on there when it shouldn't be. Yeah, people could watch me walking around naked, which that's your problem, buddy. And I don't recommend it. But yeah, so AnyDesk is really awesome software, and if you've got any need to do remote work, whether it's because you've got a powerful computer at home and you want to connect to it with something cheap, even a tablet, whether you want to access work resources from home or home resources from work, or like me, oftentimes I'll just take my tablet to the coffee shop, to the cafe, with the little Bluetooth mouse and keyboard I've got, and be doing stuff that I would be doing from home, but there. And instead of having a laptop that's a little bit heavier, a little bit clunkier, even those sort of two-in-ones that flip around, they're 2 or 3 times heavier than a tablet. So I can do some work, and then when I get bored of that, just switch it back to a tablet by turning off AnyDesk and open up my books or whatever, and look at the news and use it just as a regular tablet as well. Plus it gets really good battery life. So there's a lot of possibilities for this. Again, there are other ones out there, don't get me wrong. I just personally have used AnyDesk for a couple of years now, and it's just awesome. It's incredible at how well it works, how smooth it is. I have personally used it for surveillance. When I knew that people were coming to my house to fix stuff, I would just open up AnyDesk and watch them. And yeah, it's a little jittery. It's only, 10 frames per second. But for surveillance, that's all I need. It's not going to make a Hollywood video or anything. And that file sharing feature is really nice too. So any files that I have here at home, even if I had just a regular laptop with an external drive, if I had AnyDesk on that laptop, now I can connect to it and I can copy files no matter where I am with basically any device I've got. It's just super convenient. So I would definitely recommend checking it out if you've got use for that sort of thing. I know I do. And if you got questions or anything, you can leave them below and I'll probably ignore them. Unless I see them, in which case, I might still ignore them. Anyways, thanks for watching. Have a great day.